drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and y'all know the election is coming. Y'all, it's going to be tomorrow, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I am not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to give you any election voting advice. I do not do that, but I want to have a conversation. I want to have a conversation with us first, our people first. And so a great brother that I have a lot of respect for, that I get an opportunity to speak with, is Mr. Tony Lindsay. Tony is coming in here, and he's going to throw out some perspectives, and whether you agree or disagree with them, I hope we'll just have an honest conversation. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, brother, how you doing? How's everything?
Everything's good, man. Me and you ain't talked for a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while, especially on these social media streets. We probably couldn't find each other because I know I've been heavily shadow banned, especially by Meta platforms. So,
Jeez, that's crazy. Yeah, we got to exchange phone numbers anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think that Black men should need Mark Zuckerberg's permission to talk to each other. So,
I agree. I agree.
So anyway, I want to set the ground rules for this discussion, everybody. We had some other guests that were going to come in, some other brothers, and I messed up. I sent the wrong invitation out. And so Jamal Green out of Chicago is going to try to join us if he can. Terrain Walker is going to try to join. If they can't join tonight, they'll be here tomorrow, because y'all know tomorrow night we will be talking during the election and pretty much having an open conversation. Now, I want everybody, first of all, can y'all hear us okay? Give me a quick yes if you can hear okay. Just type yes, we can hear, or I can hear, or something like that. That way we know the audio is good. Second thing I want to ask is permission in terms of ground rules of this discussion. Can we all agree that we can disagree and still love each other? All right. Give me a yes in the chat if we can have a conversation. I know some of y'all are Democrats, some of y'all are Republicans, some of you are independent, some of you are not going to vote. And I just want you to know I believe in freedom. And so I hope we can agree that even if somebody disagrees with you, you debate them, you give your perspective. You don't have to get nasty. You don't have to call people names. We're not here to have a childish conversation. Can you give me a yes if we're going to have a grown-up conversation with two grown men, Tony and myself? I try to be grown as much as I can. And so thank you. I see the yeses, and thank you, G Goat and Larry and Rudy and everybody else. Okay, perfect. All right. So Tony, let's start with the basics. All right. So with this election coming up, there's been a lot of conversation about Black men. Have you ever in your life seen an election where Black men were discussed this much right before the presidency? Has that ever happened before?
Well, no, I will say no, it hasn't happened before. But before I elaborate, I just want to let you guys know, just in case my camera goes out temporarily for it'll be like 8 seconds, because I'm using a new camera, and I just want to let you guys, don't panic, I didn't disappear. But we are seeing an unprecedented amount of attention being paid to Black men in this election, and I think there are a lot of reasons why. But one of the main reasons that I really take exception to is that we have been placing this unrealistic and unfair burden upon Black people in particular to be the saviors for the Democrat Party. And whenever Black men decide to step away from the liberal orthodoxy of the Democrat Party, they're somehow castigated as being everything wrong with society. We're somehow scapegoated as everything that is wrong, with the quote unquote patriarchy. And unfortunately, a lot of these people, they tend to use Black women as their weapon of choice in order to paint us as everything wrong. So we're dealing with anti-Black misandry. And I find it very insulting, actually, that they have this position where Black men are somehow supposed to be subservient to Black women, or just women in general, and that we're somehow uneducated voters, or we're uninformed voters, because we don't just by default stand in line with white liberal orthodoxy. And I think that's extremely problematic, and I hope we get to discuss that a little bit further.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like my response when they were talking to me was, fuck you. I mean, it was just like who do you think you're talking to?
Right.
Who do you think you're talking to? Because the men I know, men like yourself and other men, we're not buffoons, we're not clowns. We don't need you to guide us around like little children.
Right.
Maybe you think you're talking to these goofy rappers, or maybe you think you're talking to one of these bootleg sold out pastors who would lick your boots for $1. maybe you're talking to an athlete. Some of the athletes, unfortunately, have not developed themselves intellectually enough to make their own decisions. I don't know. I
True.
don't know who you think you're talking to, but you're definitely not talking to me. I wasn't. It's like I was so offended that I wasn't offended. Meaning that what you're doing
Right.
right now is so ridiculous that I'm
Right.
not even going to acknowledge it because I don't acknowledge ignorance. And it was complete ignorance to specifically pinpoint black men
Right.
and to position it as you must be misinformed. We have to explain to you how to vote. Apparently, the rest of America knows what to do with their vote, but you don't because you don't understand that you're supposed to do what you're told, like a little boy. And that was also fascinating because black men have the highest percentage of support for Kamala Harris of any other group of men in America.
Exactly. And that was actually the point I wanted to make, because historically, black men have overwhelmingly pledged their votes for the Democrat Party, which I would argue is a sign of a lack of political intelligence, to be honest. And I'll really characterize it more so as being vulnerable to manipulation. But when you see so many black men who are, well, they've been eventually departing from the Democrat Party, I would argue that that is more of an indicator of them being informed, because they've now decided to look deeper into the details as it pertains to what the politics are that they are supporting. And so when you have so many black men who are saying, you know what, I want to protect my families. How about that? I want to protect my women in their private spaces, like their bathrooms or their sports. When you have black men who are saying, I want to protect my families, my children, from politics that teach our children that our minor children can make adult decisions with or without the consent of their parents, politics that encourage gender confusion in our children when more than 85% of them grow out of it naturally, then of course black men are going to step forward in protection of their communities. So I think that's more of a sign of masculinity, not toxic, what they've convinced you it to be, but the actual masculinity that threatens the dynamics of these politics. And I would argue that they are slave politics in which the Democrat Party, and the reason why there's a reason why I'm talking about the Democrat Party, and I'll get to that, but why the Democrat Party tends to look at black people through this lens of ownership, as if we are property, which is why Joe Biden can say to you, well, you ain't black if you don't know if you're voting for me or not. So the reason why I tend to focus more on the Democrat Party than the Republicans in this moment is because the overwhelming majority of black people in this country pledge their votes to the Democrat Party. So if 90% of black people are over there on the left, why am I going to split my time evenly and talk about the right when my people are over there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, the way I see it, Tony, is it's like it's illogical. I get it all the time. You know, if I say the Democrats aren't doing what they promised they would do, people will say, "What about the Republicans? What about the Republicans?" And I get that people would naturally want to say that because that's how politics is done. But I explain it. It's like if someone owes you money, if I go and I do work for you, and I work for your company, and I put in 40 hours of work, and you owe me $2,000, and I come to you and I say, "Hey, I did the work for you." Because we've done the work for the Democrats. There's no doubt about it, no question about it. No one has worked harder.
Absolutely.
Y'all give me a yes in the chat if you agree. Nobody works harder for the Democratic Party than the black community. Give me a yes if you agree.
That's facts.
We are the hardest working. We put in the most hours, the most work. We got booties to the polls, you know, stroll to the polls.
Working on Washington.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. There you go. We twerking at the voted all kinds of shenanigans to get the Democrats elected. So nobody works harder for the Democratic Party than black people. So if I work hard for you and I put in 40 hours of hard labor for you and you owe me $2,000 and I come to you and I say, "Hey man, you know, we had a deal. You know, I gave you the work. You're supposed to give me the money." And then they say, well, what about the company down the street? You ain't talking crazy to them. Well, but they don't owe me. I didn't work for them. I worked for you. Right? We don't vote for the Republicans.
Yes.
We vote for the Democrats. Now, if we were 90% Republican, then the Republican Party would be the party to discuss. And that deflection of saying, well, what about the Republicans really is it's kind of a tired argument that
it is
really built on sort of saying, well, you think you got it bad now, think about how bad it'll be if they get in power. So that it's just reframing it. It's like a woman, her boyfriend punches her in the face. And then she says, well, you can't punch me in the face anymore. And he says, you think you got it bad with me? Well, that guy down the street, he would kill you. So you got to stay here and let me keep punching you in the face because that's the best you're ever going to get.
Exactly.
That's a toxic, abusive relationship. What do you say?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is an abusive relationship to see how many excuses, how many pretzels we're willing to twist ourselves into to make excuses for the Democrat Party. I think it's extremely dangerous. And I do find it akin to an abusive relationship. You're in a relationship, your boyfriend beats you up, but then when the cops come, you're like, well, he didn't mean to hit me that hard. It wasn't so bad. I kind of deserved it. That's what Black people do. Every time you make excuses for the Democrat Party failing in their promises or even lack of promises to your community, because now they're not even offering you shit. Because I remember when Ice Cube came out with the contract for Black America and he tried. He didn't only reach out to pose the question to the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign, but he also asked for Black Americans to come in and help him. He was like, listen, I need y'all to help me with this idea. But you know what y'all did? Well, let me not say y'all, but you know what a lot of the Black Boule did? They vilified him. They talked shit about him. They said, no, now is not the time. But guess who actually reached out to him? Donald Trump. They actually wanted to speak to him. What did the Biden-Harris administration do? We'll get back to you after the election. Heard anything yet? This is how they think of you. The only thing I can remember is just watching that Zoom video that they leaked of Joe Biden talking down his nose to all of the so-called Black leaders, including Al Sharpton, when he was saying, to hell with y'all. I don't even need to worry about y'all. Y'all need to be worrying about all of the Hispanics that are going to outnumber you. So they're telling you to your face that you are not a priority. We need to learn the value of quid pro quo.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Go ahead, brother.
Oh, no, please. I cut you off. My apologies.
No, I'm just saying something in exchange for something, not something in exchange for nothing, which is what we continue to do by standing in line in lockstep with white liberals. And the reason why I always point out white liberals is because white liberals are, to me, arguably the most dangerous people on this planet when it comes to Black people in this country, because they stand next to you. They'll invite you over to dinner. They'll tell you to come on. They'll put the Black Lives Matter signs in their windows while they kick you out of your neighborhoods. But at the end of the day, they will always view you as property.
Interesting. I'll tell you, it's I see it like this. I don't really trust either major party. I think that the American two-tiered or two-party system is really a violation of the rights of all Americans, because you should have more than two options anyway. You have two terrible options. I did a poll on my Twitter account, which is Dr. Boyce Watkins 1. And I basically said, how do you feel about the two-party system? Over 93, 94% of the people said they don't like it. Right. So just the fact that you're making these very limited choices in this restricted box means that, if you're talking about having your freedoms taken or having your democracy stolen, you're walking into the room with no democracy in your possession anyway. Right. You think that it's democracy, but it's not democracy because your democracy was stolen before you got to the voting booth. And what does that mean? That means that if you really had full democracy, you wouldn't have to choose between Trump and Kamala. You'd be able to choose something else, something that works better for you. And so if you tell me you're hungry and I just say, well, you can go to McDonald's or Burger King, and I'm going to give you a choice. And you say, but I hate Burger King. And they'll say, well, oh, so you must like McDonald's. No, that doesn't mean I like McDonald's. I think both of these restaurants are unhealthy. Both of these places have food that's going to kill me.
You get the illusion of choice.
Right. So it's the illusion of choice. It's this sort of decision by the elite to really limit Americans and really keep us out of the political game in terms of being significant players, basically because I think it's all a money game, man. I think that, it costs $1 billion to run for president. Who's putting up $1 billion? I know I'm not. You're not. Nobody in this room is. Exactly. The people putting up the money, they go to the candidate. They say, we're going to give you $1 billion to run. and you're going to advertise and get all these little sucker voters to show up and support you because we're going to get them all riled up on dog whistle issues. But when it comes time to get those government contracts, if Trump wins, Elon Musk will get funding for SpaceX. He will get funding for Tesla and protection of the EV market. If Kamala wins, you've got people that have financially supported Kamala because they're like, we don't really care about these other issues, the LGBT and all that. We gave you that money because we need you to support our industry. We're in cannabis, we're in the green industry, whatever, and we need you to make sure that money comes to us. So I almost feel like we're playing like this game that I've never seen us really benefit from this game. What do you think? I mean, do you think the Black community has benefited from all this voting that we've done?
Well, no, I absolutely not. Honestly, I don't even think the majority of the American people have benefited from simply voting in a two-party system, which is really a uniparty. And I don't want people to confuse my heavy criticism of the Democrat Party as somehow an endorsement of the Republican Party, because they are two corporate entities that do not support or endeavor to protect the rights of the American people. I think that both of those parties are corrupt. You have the establishment Democrats and you have the establishment Republicans. You have the neocons, all of these people who are into perpetual war, taking our tax dollars, funneling it into the military industrial complex and all of these foreign proxy wars. I mean, we know what these parties represent. But the reason why I'm voting for Donald Trump this election is because I'm able to separate my feelings and look at the facts and look at the policies and look at the state of the country while he was in office, the economics, the economics. Let's even if we just stay from an economic standpoint, things were much better under Donald Trump than they are currently under the Biden-Harris administration. And I think that we've gotten to a place where our media, our corporate media, it's so co-opted. It is nothing more than stenographers for the state at this point. They are just saying the things that they want to say in order to trigger you based in emotion. And there's nothing, in my opinion, more dangerous than an uninformed voter, except for an uninformed emotional voter. And that's the problem that we're facing today in our politics. I don't care. You don't have to like Donald Trump in order to identify that sometimes your political interests may just happen to align with someone that you don't like. So I think we need to get to a point where we're willing to be mature enough, adult enough to understand that sometimes you have to be intelligent enough to navigate this political environment in a way that is going to help you to sustain until we are finally able to build institutions for ourselves, instead of continuing to depend upon a system that is not working for us whatsoever.
Okay. All right. So, by the way, everybody, in case you want to know who I'm talking to Mr. Tony Lindsay, and we're talking about Black men in the presidential election. And if you could, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share. Everybody subscribe. Also, Tony, what's your Instagram, by the way? I want to make sure everybody gets that.
I mean, I'm so shadow banned on Instagram, it doesn't even make sense. But it's
I said Instagram. I meant to say Twitter, X. You're on X,
X,
right?
Yeah. You can find me at Tony L Talks on X. Tony, the letter
Tony
L Talks on X.
Sorry, I didn't. I shouldn't. What was I saying? I said Instagram. That's crazy.
Yeah, please. Meta platform, they got me completely banned over there. Oh,
yeah,
you know what?
And I think that's an interesting point you make. I'm not a Trump supporter or a Harris supporter. I'm just not. And I think, and I'd be curious to know. But I like listening to everyone. I like hearing all the perspectives. So, what would you say in terms of the reaction that you get when you tell people that you're supporting Trump? I mean, is that it's almost as if, like, if I go out publicly and I wear a T-shirt that says, vote Kamala, or she's speaking, or something, something like that, I wouldn't get a lot of pushback from a lot of folks. But I've seen people wear, a MAGA hat or something like that. And it's almost like people almost sort of act as if you have no right to wear that. Like, we're going to beat you up or we're going to talk crazy about you.
Right.
Has that been your experience, or what do you think?
Well, I'm not a, what do you call it? I'm not one of those people that's like a fan that walks around with like the uniform and the caps and all of that. I approach my politics just from the perspective of making a logical decision. So, I'm not really into all of the fanfare and all of that stuff, but I am unapologetic in stating that I am going to vote for Donald Trump. And I can say that the overwhelming majority of pushback that I receive is always based in emotion. And I saw someone in your comment section just a while ago, or maybe mine, I don't know, that said something like, was this guy serious about the economy was better under Donald Trump? Absolutely. Absolutely. All you have to do is just compare Donald Trump's real wage growth. And anyone can look this up under Donald Trump. It was like 7.8% or 7.1%, which was historic. The real wage growth that you saw under his administration, the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that people are always talking about. Oh, he gives all of these tax cuts to the millionaires, the billionaires. Yeah, but he gave y'all tax cuts too. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's like the problem that I tend to have with the Democrat Party is that it's a lot of the politics are based in this sense of entitlement. Like you shouldn't be having more than me. I need to get some of that. And so, when we talk about the economy, just one more point on the economy, although we went through a global pandemic, first of all, we know before C-19, COVID-19, the economy was good under Donald Trump. We saw record new job creation under Donald Trump to the tune of like 7 million. New job creation, by the way. And even after COVID, the economy was actually in recovery. Donald Trump handed Joe Biden an inflation rate of 1.4%. Just look it up. But Joe Biden decided to continue with unnecessary spending, with the American Rescue Plan and all those other things that they were forcing through these tie-breaking votes, that it caused quantitative easing. And you already understand that. And all of this excessive printing of money. What happens, folks? I would ask the chat. What happens when you continue to print money out of thin air? What does it do to the value of your currency? Does anybody know? It decreases the value of the dollar. Do you know that our dollars are now worth about 20% less than they were under Donald Trump? And I think it's important that we get to a place where we decide that we're going to increase our political IQ in order to have these conversations in good faith. Because I got to be honest, it gets a little bit tiring to engage in conversations with people who clearly don't understand the politics. And it makes me nervous, especially when I see a media that is so skillful at triggering people based on emotion. Oh, and the media, by the way, that lies every damn day. And so, with my channel, because I created something on my podcast. It's called We Need to Talk with Tony Lindsay on Rumble. I dedicate a segment every Friday. It's called Fact Check Fridays. And I'm fact checking the right. I'm fact checking the left, because I think the American people, all of us, especially Black people, we need access to the truth. We got to stop investing our opinions in all of the lies that are being fed to us. And you'd be shocked at some of the fact checks that you see on the things that we expose.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is,
sorry for going so long.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I hear your perspective, and I think it's okay. And I hope everybody can agree that it's okay to hear all the points of view. I wish there was a really strong Harris supporter here to go back and forth with you, but maybe we'll have that next time. But either way, though, I have a different perspective in the sense that I don't think that Donald Trump cares a whole lot about Black people like that. I don't think he. But then again, I don't care if he cares. I know he's had Black friends. He's dated Black women. He's all the rappers that hate him now, they all took pictures with him back in the day and wanted to be his buddy. But I think Trump, I look at Trump and I see a guy who is probably a narcissist, a textbook narcissist. He is a person that is, unfortunately, even if I agree with his policies, I'd be concerned about him leading the country, because if you listen to him speak, he's talking about himself, and it's very self-congratulatory. But this is what Trump has always been. I've been following this man for 30 years, for more than 30 years, probably 35 years now. And he's always sort of had this position. I remember one time he said this like 35 years ago. He said, I wish I was a young black male in America because young black men get all the opportunities. He said this in the early 90s, like
Mhm,
1991.
mhm.
I know some of y'all may be old enough to remember that, some of you not, but I remember I took offense to that. And I wrote him a letter and when I was 19 years old. I never told anybody this. And I said, you're wrong. And I said, but if you really want to make a difference, mentor somebody like me, because I wanted to get an opportunity to work in New York at that time. I wouldn't do it now. But back then that was my goal. And I said, these barriers are there and you don't see them because you're a wealthy white man. Now, I think Trump is so I'm gonna say that even though I don't get offended when people say that they want to support Trump or they want to vote for Trump. I don't think that there are very many people in America who vote for Trump or vote for Kamala or vote for a Democrat or vote for a Republican. Usually people are voting against the other party. That's what they're doing. Like, so if you listen to most people say, that are Kamala supporters, you say, well, tell me why you love Kamala and the Democrats. First thing they'll do is they'll say, but look at the Republicans. Look at Trump. He's a
Well,
felon.
right.
He's that, right?
TDS. That's
Right.
Trump derangement syndrome.
Right.
That's
Right. But then if I talk to Trump supporters, I think it's the same thing. I think that there's a lot of outrage about
really.
because the Democrats have screwed up a lot. The Democrats, it's interesting. They warn you. They always tell you Trump is going to destroy democracy. And my first question is, well, he had 4 years to do it. Why didn't he do it the first time? Or are you trying to just scare me, which is what you always do when you want my vote? You always tell me that this is the most important election of our lifetime. And I remember pulling up quotes where literally they say that there's somebody
They
prominent
say every election.
Every election, they say this is the most important election of our lifetime. Well, I've been alive for many elections, and every election can't be the most important election of my lifetime. But then, so I think a lot of democracy was stolen under the Democrats in the sense that during the pandemic, anybody remember during the pandemic, how many people were being censored during the pandemic? And I loved when I don't even like Elon Musk that much, but I love the fact that he bought Twitter and exposed how the CIA and the FBI were working in the Biden administration was literally going to them and saying, take down this account, take down that account.
And what did
they
the
were
media
doing
say
it
about
because,
that?
yeah, it was propaganda.
They
propaganda.
said it was a big nothing burger. And this is the
Right.
problem. Listen, this goes back to what I said about we are facing an unprecedented threat right now in this country to the individual freedoms of all Americans. We are facing an unprecedented threat to the sovereignty of this country. I would encourage your viewers to look up the UN Summit for the Future, which probably 90% of the people in the chat don't know anything about. And it's scary to know the things that we're facing in this country, and most people are concerned about Trump's personality, and that's what it boils down to me. Because in every explanation that I hear about Donald Trump, it has something to do with something that he said that wasn't nice, something that made him seem like he was an asshole. Yeah, the man could be an asshole. Yeah, of course. I think they're all assholes. But for me, it boils down to policy. It boils down to what the state of the country was when we all have the benefit of looking. We have two administrations to compare. One, Donald Trump, we lived under that administration already. So I don't know why people are acting like the end of the world is coming, like if he becomes president again. And two, you have the Biden-Harris administration. And I say the Biden-Harris administration because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have both said that she was an equal partner in every decision that was made under this administration. So while a lot of you guys want to try to give her some type of credit for the full victories, no one ever wants to give her the blame for the immense failures of this administration. And I would and one of the questions I always ask people is, and maybe somebody in the chat could tell me, like, what is it that qualifies Kamala Harris to be the commander-in-chief of this country over Donald Trump, who already has the experience, with world leaders, brutal dictators, I would argue, where he was an asshole walking into that room. See, me, I would prefer to have an asshole, a bulldog that walks into the room where everybody, they like, oh shit, not this guy again, than someone who's going to go in there laughing and cackling like a hyena. I think we're becoming a joke on the world stage, and this is serious business. So I would really
Okay.
like to know, what is
Well,
it about Kamala Harris?
okay, well, let me jump in and give you some pushback on that.
Go ahead.
What do you say about the fact that there have been several high level Trump advisors who work very closely with him, who have been very clear to say that he's not fit to lead. He's not very. I mean, the list was very long. I mean,
Yeah.
and now, mind you, I'm going to agree with you that it's
Hmm.
probably a propaganda operation. I do think that mainstream media and celebrities tend to heavily favor the Democratic Party to the point where it's almost like you're not even allowed to be a Trump supporter, right? That's why I'm glad to hear your perspective. But
Hmm.
what about? I mean, you cannot deny
Yeah.
when you have several people that work very close with this man who are saying he's not fit to lead.
Hmm.
He seems to be all about himself, not
Right.
about the country. And it seems to me like Kamala's team is really kind of campaigning against that to say, look, we're the opposite of that. We're not
Right.
gonna, and so I'm wondering how much can this guy really get done? Sure, being the
I,
asshole can get certain things done, but
right.
there are points where you have to be diplomatic. You
I
can't
agree.
be the asshole and think
Right.
that you're going to get Congress to go along and support what you're trying to do, things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you actually asked that. I'm really glad you asked that question, because while there are people who were in his administration who had these negative things to say about him, I think it's important to look at who the source is. I also think it's important to understand that half of the people in his administration said the complete opposite. So I also understand that many of those people have book deals. I understand that some of those people have a very bad reputation already and have already been debunked. What is it? General what's his name? The guy that just came out and said the thing about Donald Trump admiring Adolf Hitler and all of that shit, and said the thing about I'm not paying for a effing Mexican's funeral.
Are
Uh,
you talking about Mark Milley, the
no, no,
chairman of
no.
the Joint
What's the
Chiefs?
general's name, guys? I know y'all know.
John
Kelly,
Matthews,
Kelly,
James
Kelly,
Matthews, Kelly.
Kelly,
Okay, John Kelly.
Kelly.
Oh, John Kelly. Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
remember John Kelly.
Yeah, and you had the family come out and say, no, that's bullshit. He was nothing but respectful to our family, and we just voted for him. And here's the thing that makes it even worse. It's like, why is it that all of a sudden in the 11th hour you're getting so many people who are coming out so vocally against Donald Trump when he said these things allegedly 5-6 years ago, but nobody said a word? So for me, you got to look at the source and see. We got to use a certain level of discernment here. And I also would dare to say that when it came to working in, let's say, a bipartisan manner, right? Being able to reach across the aisle and work in a diplomatic fashion, right? Donald Trump, we know that 76% of the legislation that he got through was done through bipartisan support, bipartisan measures, which means that he was able to work across the aisle 76% of the time. Do you know how much legislation was passed under the Biden-Harris administration in a bipartisan manner? 26%. That means Donald Trump was 200% more successful in getting bipartisan legislation passed through. And a lot of people, I know, they say Kamala Harris has this record of the historic number of tie-breaking votes, right? As the president of the Senate, 33 tie-breaking votes. I would argue that that is nothing more than evidence of your inability to work in a bipartisan manner, because you have to force through all of this legislation. You understand what I'm saying? I also understand that her record as a senator is of either sponsoring or co-sponsoring 164 pieces of legislation. And how many of them do you think got passed while she was a senator? Zero. So to me, that's a 100% failure rate. So when I have people who like to argue me down about why Kamala Harris is a better choice than the man who was already president already, who was able to work in a bipartisan manner 3 times the rate that they did, who had a better economy outside of the fake job numbers that y'all keep touting, where Joe Biden, they had to correct the last one by 818,000 votes. And in 2021, they had to correct it by more than 1 million votes. People don't understand how you're being given a presentation of success. But ask the average American how their pockets feel. Ask
Okay,
them how they feel when they go into the grocery store.
so I don't disagree with you on that, right? I don't. I mean, I hear your perspective, right? So here's the thing: I don't argue Democrat versus Republican. I want everybody to know that I'm not here to endorse either party, because what is unconditionally true is that no matter who's in office, black folks get left behind. Black men get left behind, black women, black children, our kids, can't read. And I think it's one of those things where I know in my family, half of my family is very, very Democratic. The other half is very, very Republican. And I listen to everyone and I hear their perspectives. And I think that sometimes we get lost in the sauce in terms of I think my view is, brother, as a black man, I would encourage you not to get too caught up in Donald Trumpism, because I don't think Trump is a solution for the people that matter for us. Neither is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but I'm not caught up in Donald Trumpism. That's the thing. People construe the fact that Donald Trump may agree with me on certain issues as Trumpism, and I think that's a problem that we have, where we view our own independent perspectives as attributing it to either a Democrat or a Republican because they may happen to agree with us. Donald Trump has no authority or license over my opinion. I'm not saying that you're insinuating that. It's just that unfortunately, sometimes in our love of our own people, who I love very, very much, we sometimes default to both sidesism, right? And I understand that when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, neither one is here for our best interests as a people. I totally agree with that. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm not going to just take my ball and run in the house, so to speak. I'm going to look at which party in this moment is providing the best platform for us to be able to sustain economically and be able to participate in the process successfully.
But I'm gonna tell you, but I gotta tell you, brother, you sound like you really, really, really like Trump. You sound like I haven't really heard you say a lot about the Republic. I've heard you. I mean, I'm sorry. I hear you. Not to say
this is the hardest part. I hear you. Go ahead.
You said I got a relative who loves Trump, and I love her, and I tell her I love you. So I don't care if you love Trump or not. It don't matter to me. And when she gets to talking and she starts laying out the talking points, it comes really, really hard, like really, really, almost like she's not even able to really see where she could be wrong on any of it. And so, for example, when I was here, when you were speaking about inflation, right? We know for a fact, for sure, inflation was higher under the Biden administration. We know the story. The pandemic occurs. They passed that. I think they called it something stupid like the Inflation Reduction Act or something, which just blew inflation out of the water.
Right. It triggered the precipitous rise of inflation.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you what I saw was for sure that was a problem, and it was something that a lot of economists were warning them against. But two variables were going on. One, they did do a little too much government spending. Those stimulus checks were thrown out there like crazy. And it's fascinating though, because when you talk about that excessive government spending that took place during the pandemic, wasn't it Trump who was taking credit? Like, it wasn't a lot of brothers giving Trump credit for sending them the stimulus check. So it seemed to me that both parties played a part in the inflation. And then you had the Federal Reserve that kept reducing interest rates. And I'm going to tell you, back at that time, you can go back and watch videos that I was doing back at that time. I said, if they keep reducing interest rates, your inflation is going to be out of control, because they don't need to do it, because the economy was not hit the way they thought it would be hit. The economy actually did okay. The stock market went crazy. My students were making a ton of money, but I was like, this is going to be bad. So I just almost think that it might be unfair.
And there were actually signs of an incoming recession before Donald Trump left. There were signs. There were indicators.
I didn't. Yes, I don't know. I don't know if saying like, okay, gas prices are higher or grocery store prices are higher, and saying that's why he will be a better president, when in fact he is the one taking credit for those stimulus checks, right?
But see, I think this is where we're getting confused here. When we say he's taking credit for those stimulus checks, yes, there were stimulus checks under Donald Trump, and I had a major problem with the CARES Act, which I thought was way too much of an upward transfer of wealth to the top, right?
It was.
Where and all they did was give Americans like a $1,200 check. I think the first time, I don't know what the other check was, but I thought it was bullshit, right? But at the end of the day, the economy was in recovery. See, I'm speaking specifically to policy here. The economy was in recovery. The stock market was recovering. People were going back to work. You understand? But when Donald Trump handed over the office, the keys to the White House, Joe Biden continued. Maybe it was based upon the promises that he made to everybody. Hey, I could give y'all a stimulus check too. I'm gonna give y'all $2,000 in exchange for your vote. But then he gave y'all $1,400. But I'm just saying it was unnecessary spending. You see, you're gonna see a precipitous rise in inflation based upon that you're gonna see an immediate result, right? To that. So we can talk, and I agree with you when it came to the continuous quantitative easing. That's been happening for a while. Since Obama.
Right. And to be fair, though, the president doesn't get to tell the chairman
Fed,
of the Fed what to do, right? So the Fed made that decision independently.
But what the Fed does is based on a lot on what the president does with economic policy.
It could be, right? I wouldn't deny that. I would say though, I would say, man, like it's I think that you can point to things like I don't understand why we ended up in these wars, right? Like the stuff with Ukraine, stuff with Israel and all that. I'd be curious to know how differently another party would handle that, because I see all that as a waste of money, and you're throwing gasoline on the fire with that. What are your thoughts on that?
When you say, well, I mean, we know that there were no new wars under Donald Trump. I mean, and that's the thing. I hate to, and here's the thing. It's like, and I know what you're saying. It sounds like I'm a what you say, like I'm like a real fan of Trump. Like,
almost, well, it did. I mean, I think I was looking at the comments. I think a lot of people feel like you're.
Well, yeah, the comments can say all of that. That's fine.
It's okay to be a Trump guy. I don't
have
any
problem. I understand that it's okay to be a Trump guy. I don't care. I mean, I love a lot of Trump guys. I'm saying that I'm a common sense guy. I'm a policy guy, and if the information that is clearly laid out before me says that this is the better option, then that is what I'm going to defend. So a lot of people confuse my defense of policy as defense of Trump. And it allows people to, unfortunately, default my opinions to being, oh, you're a Trumper, you're MAGA, you're a racist. And I think when you label people like that, it becomes the easiest way to invalidate someone's point of view and kind of dismiss what could otherwise be very valuable information. So that's why I always push back against stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? That's just what I do. So
I think that's fair.
Right. So when it comes to, when we're talking from a policy perspective, damn, I forgot what your question was, because
we just talking, man. I'm not no real journalist. I ain't Club Shay. I don't know how to ask.
I guess, am I a journalist now? Because I do.
Yeah, I ain't no journalist, man. I'm just curious to hear points of view, and so I think that when I was listening to you speak on that, I get it and I hear it, and what I've heard from a lot of black men who support Trump is that they're just tired of being used by the Democratic Party. If there are black people who are supporting Trump who used to support Obama, in fact, I bet a lot of people in this room feel that way. How many of you stopped supporting the Democrats, but you did vote for Obama? Give me a yes if you're in that category. A lot of people in that category. I think it would behoove the Democrats to try to really understand why and show that they care. So that they're either ignorant in terms of just out of touch, or they know and they just don't care. Because I sat there, when Ice Cube did the thing, I had a front row seat. He would call me every day and we would talk about stuff, and I would give him perspectives and and stuff like that. And I was I had to be honest, I was shocked by how disrespectful the Democratic Party was. I said, do they understand what they're doing right now? Because this is crazy that they're blowing him off like this, knowing this man has millions of followers and he's pushing a message that resonates with black folks. That tells me they are tone deaf when it comes to what working class, intelligent black people, I'm talking about non-athletes, non-rappers, non-comedians want. Not the bougie boulets, who's trying to get a job in the Obama administration. I'm talking, or whatever, trying to get a job in Washington. I'm talking about regular black folks. It was insane to me. And so what was interesting was, man, at one point somebody called him, a high-ranking black Democratic Party official called and said, I'm really glad you're doing this, because they put a ceiling on us in this party. We come to them with stuff we want to do for the black community, and they block us at every turn. So I loved what Ice Cube was doing. And now to finish your point, you mentioned earlier that the Republicans were the only ones responding. And I agree. The Republicans were the only ones that showed any respect. They actually, one of the Jared Kushner actually read a copy of Powernomics. Kanye West, a lot of y'all don't know this. Kanye West, who also had reached out, gave a copy of Powernomics to Jared Kushner. Jared read the book from cover to cover, took notes, underlined stuff, all that, right? I had a lot of respect for that. But I think that the Republicans' genuine interest, we cannot deny that it wasn't so much about a concern for black folks. It was more driven by opportunism, right? Like if I'm trying to steal your girl and I know I can buy her some flowers when her man never did and get her attention, that does not mean I'm going to love your girl. That just means that I'm going to take something from you. And I feel like that's what they are doing with black folks. I feel like they were just kind of like, okay, you're disgruntled. We're going to feed on that. Candace Owens loves to pour gas on that fire, but I don't look at it as we genuinely want to do right by you. I look at it because they won't even support reparations, and that's a problem for me. But I look at it as we see how bad they're treating you, so we're going to give you more false hope. Obama gave us false hope. Now the Republicans give us false hope. So it's really like two pimps fighting over which one's going to take control of the hoe. That's what I see. But please inform me. Tell me where I'm wrong about that.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong at all. Well, and before I move forward, let me qualify my statements, because I'm looking at your comment section. Some of the shit is real funny. Like some dude was like, this dude just watches Fox News. I don't watch Fox News because that's just as much propaganda as MSNBC and CNN. I get my information from the source. The sources that all of the articles that you read get their information from, I go to the source in order to form my own opinion. That's what we're supposed to do. Well, I don't default to the opinions of others or their interpretations of the data, their interpretation of the court documents. I like to look into this information for myself, and I would encourage people to do more of that. And I also want to qualify this by saying that I voted for Joe Biden in 2020. So, for the people that, oh, this guy's a Trumper. If you go to my Twitter feed, well, X now, and you look back in 2018, 2017, I had just as much Trump derangement syndrome as some of the people I see in your comment section. And I'm not upset when I see them say this dumb shit. Yo, this dude is a clown, blah, 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 because I know that's your derangement talking. I know that you don't even understand probably half of the things that I'm saying here, and it just sounds like blah, 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 misinformation because you haven't studied it. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful or insulting to anyone, but it doesn't help us. That's the point. It does not help us. We have to take the responsibility, the charge of being informed when it comes to our politics, because we are continuously treated by the left and the right as political children. We are the football that is being kicked around the field, but for some reason we seem to believe that we're somehow a part of the game. We're not playing in the game. We're the football that's being thrown around. And so, and the last thing I want to talk about with the Donald Trump situation, and I think it's quite clear. Donald Trump is a first-time politician. And this is not even said to excuse nothing, but we know the last 16 years, there's only been 4 years with a Republican president. That's Donald Trump, right? And we know that it yielded, if you look at the data, we had better jobs numbers. We had higher real wage growth. We had lower inflation. We had a lower deficit outside of COVID. And anyone is welcome to look up this information. But for some reason, Donald Trump is the problem with everything. You see what I'm saying? And one thing I do know, and I don't know if you guys like listen to the interviews, because I listen to everything. I listen to the right, like liberal, the MS. I hate watching those things because they're all propaganda. But I think we need to watch it in order to understand the angle that people are coming from. But I pay attention to everything. And what I've understood, and is clearly obvious, as a new politician, Donald Trump had to rely upon people with said experience when he came into the office of president. And he trusted certain people with their recommendations on who to put in his administration. Can we admit that? Can we admit that without saying that's an excuse? But Donald Trump has been very open in saying, listen, I didn't know so much what I was doing back then, so I didn't know who I could rely upon. We know, we saw the historic number of leaks that was coming out of the White House at the time. We saw all the people who were undermining the man during his administration, right? And whatever. But I'm saying today, when you see Donald Trump reaching across the aisle and pulling in people like RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, who were Democrats, and what Elon Musk and who else? Like Byron Donalds.
Yep.
Like this, I think there are a lot of brilliant people that he is pulling in that are committed to creating change. And then when I look, who's on Kamala Harris's team? Like, if just objectively, who's on Kamala Harris's team? Cardi B? What? Meg Thee Stallion? Like, I'm trying to understand. Elon Musk he bought Twitter and he downsized it by 80% and has it working in a more productive manner at a 20% capacity. And Donald Trump is going to bring Elon Musk in to create a government efficiency commission. You know what that's to do? It's to decrease the wasteful spending and the over bloating of the federal budget. All where you got 200 employees doing the job of 3. I mean, can we all admit that there's wasteful spending in the government? So it's not a tough decision for me, especially when Kamala Harris is openly promising to continue censoring opinions that don't align with the government. It's not a hard call.
Well, let me tell you, I did drop in the chat GPT to ask you to sort of check into what you were saying about whether the economy is better under Trump or Biden. I'll give you the results. It says here in the first
is liberal as hell, but go ahead.
It could be. Now, this came from the Wall Street Journal. In Trump's first 3 years, real GDP grew at an average annual rate of 2.5%. The pandemic had a big contraction, a big decline in GDP. Biden's GDP from 2020, the end of 2020 to 2023, this doesn't include the start of the pandemic because he had that weird dip, was about 3.2%. But that is a little bit of a bias in Biden's favor because when you're coming out of a dip, it's easy to have high growth coming out of a dip. Employment, they said, let's see.
Just remember, I said excluding COVID. Remember, I said excluding the last year of COVID. If you remove the last year of COVID with Donald Trump and remove the first year of COVID with Joe Biden, that's where I'm talking about the numbers, because it was a global pandemic. So omit COVID. That's where I'm saying you look at the numbers, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So Trump's term, actually, he added jobs the first 3 years, but the pandemic resulted in a net loss of 2.7 million jobs by the end of his term. But that is COVID, right? You don't exclude COVID, or you exclude COVID, then you got some job growth. Biden, they said that as of September 2024, about 16.2 million jobs have been added since he took office, with the unemployment rate decreasing from 6.4% in January 2021 to 4.1% recently. That's the Wall Street Journal. Inflation was relatively low.
Before you go to the next one, I just want to make it clear, and this is why I think I love that you're quoting this stuff from, what is it, Chat GPT or Wall Street Journal?
Well, actually, they're going to the reference, the Wall Street Journal.
Cool. Okay, right. I love that you're reading that, because I just want to show you something in what you just said. Right. We talked about Joe Biden's numbers, his job numbers of, what was it, 16 point something million?
16 million jobs.
Okay. Yep. Do you all know that included in those numbers are the people who are returning back to work after COVID? Do people know that? Those are people who are going back to work. Do people also know that included in Joe Biden's job numbers were the people who were taking 2 and 3 jobs to survive under Bidenflation? So that means if there were, let's say 100 people have jobs, and then there are 200 new jobs that are open, and each person goes over and takes 2 jobs, that is now going to be counted as 300 jobs in the job market under Joe Biden's jobs numbers. So this is what I want you guys to understand when it comes to context and calculation. That's why when I spoke earlier, I mentioned the new job creation under Donald Trump. That means jobs that did not exist prior. New job creation. So I just want you guys to understand how statistics can be manipulated based upon the person who's writing the article to you.
Right. But here's my problem with Trump. Here's my problem with Trump supporters, though, or anybody supporting Trump. They don't believe shit. They don't believe like any source. I know this. I know. No, let me tell you. I know Biden supporters really well because I got them in my family that I love, and I got Trump supporters in my family. One thing that the Republicans have done is they have trained. What Trump heavy Republicans have done is they have trained their supporters to not believe anything that is different from what they want the narrative to be.
There are
Uh,
definitely people like that
but
in like
this term
as
fake
Donald
news,
Trump
right? Yeah,
supporters.
right,
Absolutely.
right. Like the fact
But
that
that's
I can
not me. I'm
but
quoting
listen,
facts.
right, I get it though. But the thing is that the fact that I can pull something up on ChatGPT from the Wall Street Journal and you immediately say, "Well, they didn't count this and they didn't count that." I hear you. I hear you. But it's like,
That
well,
just means that I'm
what,
researching it. And
right?
that's all I want to make clear. You understand? I'm just trying to point out, like I did before, folks. What did I say when I first came on here? I said I do not get my information from other people's opinions. I form my own opinion by going to the source of the
Okay,
information
so what
because
source
I
did you
understand
go?
how data can be manipulated.
I
You
get it. Okay,
understand? You
well, let
go
me
to
ask
the
you,
Bureau
Tony.
of Labor and Statistics. You
Okay,
go
so
to
you
these.
went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics
Yes,
data. That's where you
yes,
got your okay.
yes. There are .gov websites that you can go
Okay.
to reference all of this information. I'm not saying that I don't read the Wall Street Journal and other things like that, but
Right.
it oh damn it.
It's okay. Just keep talking. We can hear you.
Yeah, but it provides you with the full context in order to get a more accurate view of what's being presented to you. And I'm not even saying, listen, I'm not saying every article I read is wrong. I'm just saying that whatever information you are given, you have to question it, especially in this current environment of propaganda. Whatever you're taught, you got to question it. You don't have to disagree with it, but you must question it because if you don't, you're nothing more than a mouthpiece for someone else's point of view or their
Okay,
agenda.
okay, so let me test you with this. Let me ask you this. Tell me, can you tell me two or three things that the Biden administration clearly did that was superior to the Trump administration that benefited the American people? I'd be
That the
curious to
Biden
hear you answer that.
that the
Just
Biden
yeah,
administration did.
tell me like two or three things that they did
Yeah,
that you
right, and I know what you're trying to do to kind of make it seem like, well, can we both sides it? Can we see if there's anything
it doesn't no,
that
no, no,
Joe
we both
Biden did that you
I,
can praise?
I
But
think it's hard to
let me
prove that
think,
Trump is
because
clearly unconditionally better in every category, though. I don't think you can do that, brother. I think you gotta. I mean, can you
well,
concede? Like, is there anything where you say, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm a
here's the
both sider.
I'll
I'm a
answer.
both sider in the sense that I think both of these parties are racist and they oppress black people and
Mhm.
use us to achieve their goals. Right? I don't think black
Okay.
people are going to do better under the Democrat or Republican administration unless black
Mhm.
people themselves do better. When we choose to do better, I can tell you like this: I
Mhm.
know black folks who build wealth consistently. Their wealth
Mhm.
went up under Trump. Their wealth went up under Biden. Their wealth went up under Obama. Their wealth went up under Bush. So that's where I stand, right? So I am
Mhm.
a both sideser. So as a both
Mhm.
sideser, I see bullshit on both sides. So tell me
Mhm.
where are the Democrats superior to the Republicans in terms of how they ran their
Well, I don't
impeachment?
want to go Democrat superior to Republicans because I think they're both trash.
Mm,
I'm see. Remember, I'm speaking in terms of Donald Trump versus the Biden-Harris administration. If we're talking about anything that I could argue, maybe that was done better under the Biden-Harris administration, I would say the money that they gave to the HBCUs, right? But
okay.
because they gave far more. But I also understand that a lot of that was kind of rooted in like the pandemic recovery and things of that nature. Because Donald Trump, I think he gave the HBCUs $250 million, and I think he made it like permanent or something like that, or maybe like 10 years. He extended it like significantly. And Joe Biden just gave like a bulk of like 1 point something $billion, which I think was good, right? So that's one area that I can give them. But the thing is, I don't want to get into this thing where it's like I'm trying to look for the rosiness of the Biden administration when I have a lot of problems with the shit that they've done, whether it be to the border policies, where as soon as Joe Biden got in office, the first thing he started doing was reversing all of the executive orders of Donald Trump that were actually protecting the border and letting like more than 20 million people into the country. Where do you think those people are going? Who do you think is going to have to compete with those people in the job market? Primarily black men. So I'm
Right.
concerned with my community. When you see that you got so many of these people pouring into our neighborhoods where we now got to compete with them while our tax dollars and our resources in our community are being pledged to them to put them in hotels, give them welfare, give them cash, medical benefits, while we got black men sleeping on the streets and being kicked out of shelters to make room for them. So I don't really care, to be honest, about how good Joe Biden or Kamala Harris did when they've been shitting openly on our community. Because what I always notice is that in all of the politics that's going back between the left and the right, the people who always get left out are black people, and specifically black men. Can we admit that? Can we finally admit that the most disrespected and the most propagandized people in this country are black men? Can we all admit that?
Now, I do agree with that. I'll say this. I look at it as, this Democrat Republican stuff as almost like choosing what outfit to wear, right? I can't tell everybody that they need to dress like me because how I dress is my preference. It's based on what I like and what I don't like. What I can tell you is I could say, well,
I'm
look,
not a Republican, by the way. But go ahead.
yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah, you're right. So I the way I would look at it is I would say, look, if you're in a warm climate, this is a summer outfit you should wear. If you're going to church, this is what you should wear. And today I'm wearing a suit because I am in the office, right? So the reason the analogy is basically that when I look at the Democrat Republican thing, here's what I see as a person who is not voting for either major party, and I don't care what anybody thinks about that. I look over at the Democrats and I see a lot of mistakes. Number one, you had the love of black people, the adoration of black folks. You took that for granted. You mistreated black people, and you opened the door for many black people to leave the party. Don't blame them. Blame yourself. Blame yourself. Number two, the open border policy is a real problem. I think it's a national security issue. It's a significant economic issue.
Absolutely.
And I'm not happy with it. But at the same time, I think that what's going on is you have the elites that know that your economy grows when you allow more immigrants now, because a lot of countries like America and Europe and Asia are getting older. So they're actually fighting to recruit people to come to their country so they can have a younger workforce. But it makes the rich richer because this workforce is not going to be fairly compensated. So the people at the top, the stockholders like myself, are doing better because you got a bigger labor supply, which is going to reduce the cost of labor, right? So then they say, hey, inflation's down. And a lot of it's because workers' wages are kept artificially low because they keep importing all these workers that are going to compete with you for jobs. So that's an issue for me. Another thing I see.
Only thing is the execution is poor. Just letting you know, because I read somewhere, and I'll find the stat later to give to you, that for each one of these illegal immigrants that's coming into the country, it's a net negative of $68,000 per immigrant. So that's why it's not actually helping. You get what I'm saying? And you still have people who are out of work that subsequently will be applying for benefits and things of that nature. So when you look at it all together, it's still a net negative. That's one of the things with the.
I just think about it from a national security standpoint. I mean,
I agree.
American policy. You create a lot of enemies around the world. So if I am I don't know if I'm a member of some group, Hamas or something, and I've grown up hating the United States because of the terrible things that they've done to my people, and I know your border is wide open. You got an op down the street and he leaves his back door wide open. Oh, I'll be coming to get you, right? So I kind of feel like that's the thing that we forget, is that we have enemies that are coming into the country. Like in Chicago, a lot of the killing in Chicago, it isn't just black people killing black people. It's a lot of it's the drug trade, because the cartels come through the wide open border, and Chicago is a hub for drug distribution around the country. So a lot of the killings are connected directly to some of these major drug cartels in Mexico. So I think that's an issue. I don't all the sort of gay trans stuff being shoved on us was a problem.
I have a problem with it being shoved on our children, especially. Right. And I think as a parent, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and we became toxic for just saying, look, don't be talking to my kid about that. Let me handle that. And they're like, no, we need to handle that because we really have an agenda for your kids. I do believe that the agenda is real, and a lot of people feel that way. So these are my issues in terms of why I stopped supporting the Democratic Party. I never became a true Republican because I don't feel I have enough in alignment with them. I feel more like they are competitors.
You have more conservative views, though. I mean,
I do have conservative views in some areas. I do agree, but I think a lot of their conservatism is a bit of a lie, a bit false, right? Because really, I see the Republicans, some of the stuff they do in terms of defending and supporting the rich is a direct manipulation of working class people. I don't understand why a toothless hillbilly that lives in the mountains of Appalachia is going to fall in love with some New York billionaire who would literally pee on them if he was walking by. I'm not convinced that billionaires like Trump are out here really working and fighting for working class people. I think that they're
but I
doing
also
what they've always
don't.
done.
Go ahead. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think Trump's
Right.
doing what he's always done. He's always fought for wealthy people like him. He's gonna get the tax
I
break.
agree, but at the same time, and here's the thing: this is where that whole lesser of two evils conversation comes in, which I hate. Right? I hate that.
Right.
I hate the fact that we have allowed ourselves to get into this position where we have to keep voting for lesser of evils. Right? But as I said before, I think we are facing an unprecedented threat now in this moment in history. And once again, I would ask your audience to look up the UN Summit for the Future. I cannot talk about it on certain social media platforms because I'll get taken. Oh, wait a minute. We're on Rumble and X. Wait, what are you on? You on YouTube?
Oh, I'm on YouTube and
Oh, yeah. Okay. I
Facebook.
can't
So
talk about it.
yeah, so let's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Yeah.
I
And
encourage everybody.
DOD directive, last one. And just also look up DOD directive 5240.01, which was signed by the Biden-Harris administration on September 27th of this year. DOD directive 5240.01. And I want you to play that back when you remember how they were saying that Donald Trump was talking about how he wanted to use the military against American citizens. Just remember that. Go ahead.
Yeah, now that part I certainly agree with. Now let me ask you about this. I'd be curious to get your take on this. Because it's interesting that I hear the Democrats say Trump is going to use weapons on American citizens. That's what makes him dangerous.
Yeah.
And then I hear my Republican friends say, mention that directive that you just mentioned, DOD directive 5240.01, right? And saying, no, actually, it's them who are planning to use weapons on American citizens. So here's what is interesting to me.
It's in plain text.
No, but listen though. If I am a Democrat, what I'm saying is I say, well, no, look at the insurrection. Look at what happened January 6th. January 6th, we should be using weapons on people like that because they're dangerous, right? I'm gonna give you a chance to respond. But we should use weapons on these people because they are the extremists, they are dangerous, they're violent, they're gonna hurt everybody, right? But then here's the thing that was interesting to me. Again, as a person who literally, I definitely, if a both sides are means I ain't participating in none of that shit, then that's what I am. So here's what I saw on the other side.
The riots, the Black Lives Matter riots when they burned down
right.
The
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
You
saw lawlessness unlike anything I'd ever seen. People running through neighborhoods, burning down businesses,
and Kamala Harris tried to bail them out. But I'm just saying,
throwing rocks at the police. It's crazy, right?
We got to be consistent across the board. And my consistent position is that you do not use the military against American citizens, right? Plain and simple. And I do also understand. I don't even want to get into the thing about what Donald Trump and what was taken out of context and all that. I don't want to do that because I'm not even here to be a Trump apologist. But I will say that at the end of the day, words don't mean as much as actions. Look up DOD Directive 5240.01. That's it. Like the evidence is there. So it's like, I don't know how we can still continue to default to both sidesism when the danger is clearly in front of you. When your children are being targeted by, I would argue, a demonic agenda that is trying to confuse our children, telling our boys they can be girls, girls can be boys. You want boys, biological boys, to participate in your girls' sports and go in their bathrooms and go into their locker rooms. And somehow we're supposed to be okay with that, where they're telling your children that they can make adult decisions without the consent of their parents. And if you don't affirm your children, aka agree with them, you can be punished. You can be targeted as a domestic terrorist. This is what's literally happening. How many people know about the brother Omali Yeshitari, I think his name is, from the Black Uhuru Socialist Movement, who was arrested for quote unquote propaganda, aka free speech, for speaking out against the funding of the Ukraine war? He was arrested for Russian propaganda. Here's the thing. When I talk about free speech and how it's a threat to the American people, guess who always gets hit first? Black people. And this is the problem that I have. When it comes to censorship, y'all loved it when they censored Donald Trump. Shit, I ain't gonna lie. I had Trump derangement syndrome at the time. I was like, oh shit, they finally shut that dude up. But then when I saw how everybody was celebrating it, and then my critical thinking kicked in, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I thought about what they did to Minister Louis Farrakhan Remember with the what's his name? What's the Jones guy? Alex Jones thing, and they used him as an excuse to take the minister off of the internet. Then they removed the sitting president from the internet. I was like, oh shit, black people, y'all in trouble. Because who is the most silenced people on social media? How many of y'all been called a nigger? Or been called every sort of racial epithet in the world, and the moment you try to respond to it or say, yo, you get thrown in Facebook jail. We know who gets censored the most.
Yeah.
So how can y'all vote for somebody who is actually
that
promising to do that?
And that's a good point, right? That's a and that really drives us back to that lesser of two evils conversation, which is really a terrible conversation for us to have. It's one that I don't even enjoy at all because I don't know. As a man, I have no comfort in allowing anybody to box me into an uncomfortable choice. I'll just say, look, I'd rather be dead than make a decision right now because you haven't given me any options. But you are right though. That censorship piece is terrible. I've seen it more from the Democrats than the Republicans, and I think that we can both agree for sure that censorship is wrong no matter what. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious when the left will cheer when you censor someone from the right, but then they're upset if they feel that their voice isn't heard, right? And I think that generally speaking, we got to get past that. Now, here's the thing that's interesting to me. I'm gonna tell you the truth. If I was a woman, I'd be a Democrat because I don't think the Republicans have shown. Yeah, I would. If I, especially if I was a woman who was connected to some of the abuse that women have experienced. The assaults, the things like that, I would probably be more of a Democrat because I'd want to see a woman. I'd want to see a woman in the White House, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I support that. I affirm that. People in my household feel that way, and I don't tell them that they can't feel that way. But what I then say is, I say, look, but don't feel bad. Don't get mad at me because I'm not a woman. I'm not going to do what women do, but I respect you as a woman. If I was gay, I don't feel like I'd be all that welcome in the Republican Party, just to be honest, because I think that we mistreat gay people in our country to some extent. We do. And I think the problem with the trans conversation to me, Tony, is I don't think that the percentage of the population is big enough for it to be that big of the
that is true.
Right.
That is true.
Right. So I'll say this, and I want you to take over from here, is that the Democrats, I think, made a mistake by making it too much of the conversation. And the Republicans are sort of feeding off of that when most of us really don't have that many interactions with trans people. However, you are right, though. As a father of girls, I don't want to imagine our daughter out here trying to compete with somebody with a penis. I don't want it's like that. No, or going into the bathroom and finding, I don't care if you got the transition or not. That ain't cool. Like that's so that is gonna trigger me. But the question I would ask myself is that really enough for me to pick one candidate over another? Because I don't know if it's in my day-to-day life, I don't run into any people in that category. So I don't think I'd make a big decision based on that. What do you say?
I can say that I have noticed a sizable shift in the support from the LGBT community going towards the Republican Party. And I think a lot of it is rooted in what people like myself have identified, long ago. Whenever you talk about certain marginalized groups, right? Or certain people who are fragmented into different demographics, you notice how your movements always get co-opted and taken over and commodified, corporatized. How you just mentioned how tiny the segment of the population is for trans, but that's like the number one issue that's being provided to you by every big corporation. All of these these ESG, DEI initiatives that want to make sure that you put that trans shit right up front into your children everywhere. Even the gay people, I know they don't like that shit. I'm just telling you that. So I see a lot of them drifting towards the Republican Party. And also I say that when it comes to black people, our movements are always co-opted and diluted with everyone else with terms like people of color, right? Listen, I'm not saying that I have anything against our Latino brothers and sisters or any other groups, but I think that when there are certain issues that are directly rooted in anti-blackness, I think it's problematic to just kind of put this blanket label of people of color on black people when there are certain issues that we need to deal with directly. Now, as far as the issue of women, I know you said if you were a woman, you'd probably vote Democrat. I guess I kind of see that, But the thing is this, Democrats always talk about this protection of women. But I honestly find the trans movement to be one of the most misogynistic movements on this earth because it
Yeah,
erases women. It erases you. It,
I
it,
do
it,
agree with
it,
that.
it redefines what you are and makes
Mhm.
you a version of yourself. You're now
Yeah,
a cis woman. And these men who have decided that they know what a woman is, they've
yeah,
decided that they can redefine what you are while wearing a costume of what you
yeah,
are. So
yeah,
I find
yeah.
that to be a lack of protection of women. I
Mm.
I
I,
believe
oh,
that
I,
we
I I agree with you 100%. I mean, look, I agree with you on that because I think that when you talk about this concept of protecting women, it becomes complicated, right? Because I remember seeing Trump say, "Ladies, I'll be your protector." You remember that, right?
yeah, but
And I
everybody
was
was pissed off.
well, right, but here's the thing, though. For some women, that is a protector, right? He's the billionaire asshole who will go out and fight and defend what he loves and what he believes in. Some women like that, and then so the protection of women could be defined in his version of masculinity. But then you got the other side of what they consider protecting women, which might mean if you want to terminate your pregnancy. Which, by the way, I'm not comfortable with that because they told my mother to terminate me when
Mm,
when I was
mm.
a baby because she was 16 and didn't have any money, and
Mm.
so I just can't. I'm not comfortable with that, right? So that's what leads me to leave the Democratic Party. But there are people who might interpret the protection of women to be related to a sensitivity to labor rights for women, equal pay, stuff like that. Maybe they see, the right to terminate as a protection of women. Maybe they see, some of these other
Mhm.
areas. And I personally think I get that, right? I don't agree with it, but I hear it.
But can I ask you a question about that?
Please.
Because I've noticed that the Democrat Party, they really have this very strong platform of terminating pregnancies, right?
Yeah.
We saw uh, you know, as a black person, I grew up no understanding that the nuclear family was something that we want to aspire for. We want a
Mm,
mom, we want a dad, we want the kids, we want to be able to buy the house. Like that was like the semblance of the American dream, right? Especially for black people. And
yeah.
so when I look at Democrats, here we go again, because listen, all of y'all are rocking with Democrats. I see them, they had a DNC convention in black ass Chicago
Yeah.
where they had abortion trucks and vasectomy trucks parked right outside to let y'all know to stop reproducing.
Woo, buddy.
Do y'all know about Margaret Sanger? Like it's
Yeah.
like, to me, how has that become the reproductive rights, the civil rights issue of the day when they mask abortion as reproductive rights? But I don't hear them talking about IVF treatments. I don't hear
Mm,
them talking about endometriosis. I don't hear them talking about fibroids. I don't hear them talking about anything that will facilitate the birth of your black children.
mhm.
But all I hear is, yo, just take this pill or just go in there and just get rid of that shit. I
Right.
hear no talk about responsibility when you're having sex. So for me, I think that it is utterly disrespectful the way that the Democratic Party, who black people are so loyal to, treats you. They talk to you as if you are political children while shaming you into behaving as political children.
I agree. I hear everything you're saying on that. I mean, that truck was like, what the hell, man? I mean, that's like the what the fuck truck to me. I can believe that they did that, and I think it's
That was
yeah,
insulting. That was
right.
insulting.
And I think that what our people have to do. Look, I don't have a problem with people being Democrat or Republican. My question for you would be, did you decide that's who you are? Or did you let someone else push you in that direction one way or the other? It's not okay to let people to just do it because everyone else is doing it. I think you got to
Mm,
really think through this. Like for
mm.
example, if you want to talk about terminating a pregnancy, I saw an image of Sexy Red, with her booty out, saying, "I just voted for Kamala because you can't tell us what to do with our coochies," right? And that to me is not. There's
Wait,
nothing.
what? I thought she
Yeah,
was supporting Trump.
no, she switched. She
Oh, she
switched.
must have been on one of them Diddy tape.
Yeah, she probably was.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know the
yeah, my
fixes
bad.
there, right? We know how it is, right?
My bad.
So
Sorry.
no, but she literally took the picture. Her ass was out, and she said, "I voted for Kamala Harris. You can't tell us what to do with our coochies." And that made me sad because you're really adding to the significant disrespect that Black women receive around the world, because this multi-billion-dollar industry is built around making the Black woman look like an irresponsible whore, right? And that's just to keep it plain. And so, and then also, it really sinks to this sort of idea that Black people, that we're sort of these bottom dwellers, where we don't even think about the power of reproduction and what sex is really intended for, right? Sex is for reproduction. The Black woman's womb is the only place you can create a Black child. And the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's come out of a Black woman's womb. So that's a precious sacred space. And the fact that you've reduced it to a $5 coochie makes you as much of an enemy as anybody in the KKK, right? And so I think that generally, when you talk about something like the termination of a pregnancy, I really think that there's not enough of a conscious conversation around it to say, okay, we're not going to tell you what to do, but do you really understand what you're doing? Do you really understand what's at stake? Or have you reduced that decision to the fact that, look, I can just have irresponsible sex, irresponsible, unprotected sex with random people, and be a pleasure seeker my whole life without any accountability for those decisions that are going to force me to grow into a mom, to grow into an adult, right? And you see this, and I don't think there's enough conversation about the long-term effects of that. Like I think they should really, talk to that woman who's 40 years old who had 7 or 8 abortions, see how she feels about that, so you can really understand this. It ain't just about seeking pleasure while you're young. And this speaks to it. I'd like to get your point, your position on this. This speaks to the idea that one thing about liberals, and Malcolm used to warn us about the liberals, is that they keep Black people in this child space, the men and the women. The women, you're following the sexy red that's telling you just, do whatever you want, and there's no consequences. And then you have on the male side, you got the rappers, who are just a horrific representation of us as Black men. Not all of them, but many of them are. And the world loves to see these men show up as kids. If you look at every single entertainer that Kamala had perform at her rallies, it was either a Black woman shaking ass or a Black man who can't even spell his mama's last name. And I think that's a problem. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's pandering to the Black community, right? But the thing is, it's not even pandering to us, because it operates off of this default assumption that we are attracted to deviancy. Yeah. It does not lend for the possibility that we all aren't rappers and idols of celebrities. Black people, there are middle class and wealthy Black people. We don't all subscribe to the stereotypical behavior that the Democrat Party tends to deliver to us through their politics, and even sometimes the Republicans. But a lot of times I think the Republicans are just doing what they see the Democrats do, because Black people don't talk to Republicans. Let's be real. Anytime a Black person even dares to speak to anyone on the Republican side, we immediately call them a coon, a traitor, sellout, all of that type of shit. And I actually think that that's extremely disrespectful and unwarranted, because we're Black first, aren't we?
Yes.
So when you decide that you're going to gauge a person's Blackness based upon the white run political party that they are voting with, you're out of line. Especially when Black Democrats love to call people coons who want to walk away from the Democrat Party, because that means you're gauging my Blackness based upon my willingness to be in allegiance with white liberals, because it's white liberals who run the Democrat Party. So I think a lot of times we don't understand what we're saying. You call Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was the hero of the story. Like, y'all don't even know what the hell y'all are saying.
Didn't he read the book?
Right. So I just think that we got to get away from these politics of constantly insulting us, whether it's coming from Democrats or Republicans. And that's why I'm not voting Democrat. I'm not voting Republican. I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at the information. And I'm doing what I believe makes sense, not only for the country, but also for Black people who saw historic job numbers and small business, like entrepreneurship, like success under Donald Trump. I don't know how many of y'all are business owners, but I was doing great under Trump. I was benefiting from them tax cuts and the deregulation.
Well, let me say this. Well, let me say, I respect your decision because it's your decision, and It's as simple as that for me. I don't even think it's like I don't think that the same way no one can call you a coon for who you vote for. I don't think any of us would have the right to criticize someone else's decision to support the Harris ticket. I think that, to your point, though, one of the things that really drove
I
me
will.
crazy is you will
No,
see what.
I'll criticize it not based in your race, not based in calling you a traitor.
Mm.
I'll criticize it if you're not thinking critically. Absolutely. Because my job here is to get my people to think critically and not emotionally. So yeah, I'm being real with you. I am going to tell you.
I hear that. I hear that for sure. But I just kind of think that when I hear people slinging facts and data back and forth, I just think that it's easy to manipulate and create facts that seem to support your position. Right? I've seen super smart people I respect who love the Democrats give me a list of reasons why I should support the Democrats that are based on facts. And then I've seen people do the same thing with the Republicans, and I see it more so as a preference thing. I just, it's like if I wear jeans and you wear, slacks. I can't say slacks are always bad for everybody. They're not, right?
Right.
They're bad for me, and that's kind of how I see it. I think that for Black people, the thing we've got to get out of though is this idea that anybody can co-opt our blackness and claim it for themselves.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, if anybody's tempting you to run out and call somebody a name because they did not vote for the same white man that you voted for, the same political party you supported, I think that nonsense has to stop.
Right.
You my brother because I know you, Tony. I like you. I respect what you have to say. And I don't really care a whole lot whether you're Democrat or Republican. I really don't. And so I
It's
because
a shame
I
so
feel
many
like at
black
the end of the
people
day,
really
if
care. This shit is breaking up families.
but
It's crazy over the
right,
politics.
right, I'm not here. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to. I'm never ever going to lose a friend over Democrat Republican stuff. Did I tell you what happened with DL Hughley?
Oh
Did I tell you
Lord.
about that? Did you hear my man? So I had a mutual friend that knows DL, and apparently
Mhm.
DL. I think DL looks ridiculous out here, just like acting like he works for the
Stomping
Democratic
for the
Party, right?
Democrats.
Yeah,
Forever for the
he just looks
plantation.
crazy. He's
Mhm.
embarrassing himself, and I don't know why. I don't know what they have on him. I don't know what's going on, but I don't know. They're either paying him well or they have something over his head or
Right.
both. I don't know. But anyway, I had a mutual friend, man, and he says, "Hey, I got DL on the phone," and I said, "Oh, okay, well, put him through." And I did not say a single word. I think I said, "Hey, brother, how are you?" And he literally starts off, "I'm not your brother. Fuck you. I hate you. If I see you, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna fuck you up." Like it was literally like, and it was beyond like I'm gonna beat you up. It was more like I'm really trying to intimidate you. And I was kind of just thinking, wow, this is quite fascinating that a man of his stature would even be having this conversation. It made me wonder: is he mentally ill? Is he on drugs? Is he drinking? And I just sat and I just listened. I did not say a single word because I
Mhm.
refuse to argue. I'm not going to argue with another black man about whether or not he's a Democrat or Republican. I'm not going to fight with you about that. If we can have an intelligent conversation, I'll participate in that. If we can find the things we agree on, I can do that. But I did not say a single word. And then eventually the phone call got ended because the person that brought us together was concerned because we were both kind of surprised that he started the conversation that way. This went on for several minutes. And I just said, all I said, I didn't say, man, I can't believe he said that to me. I said, is he okay? Because this Democrat Republican nonsense is driving black folks crazy.
Insane. Yes. It's
Yeah,
making
and
yes.
I don't understand it at all. Guess what? No matter who gets elected in the next election, most of your children in the public school still won't be able to read. No matter who gets elected in the next election, black wealth is still going to be headed down. No matter who gets elected in the next election, black families will still be in shambles. So what are you fighting for? I'm not going to argue with you about this nonsense. That's not, so it's almost like me and you fighting and ending our friendship because I was dumb enough to cheer for the Dallas Cowboys, knowing they're going to lose in the second round of the playoffs every year. And let's say you're cheering for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to fight you about that. I might debate you, but I'm not going to fight you about it. What say you, Tony? I'll let you get the last word, man. I've had you on here for a long time, and I appreciate you coming in and sharing your perspective. Please.
But no, I do think that it's silly. I mean, I understand though how people can be passionate based upon, I would say, the level of information that they have. So I can understand how some people can maybe be a little more passionate. But what I'm seeing is not even people hating people because they know more about the danger. I'm seeing people who are espousing a lot of hatred for their friends and family members, more so based in a lack of knowledge and in this sense of judgment of people. um it feels like a dependency, like you feel like you just have to be attached to whatever the politics are that are being given to you by the Democrat Party. And I think, we get caught up in the bipartisan arguments, the left versus the right, Democrat versus Republican. But I think we can operate within that framework that is laid out while still understanding that we should be have a bird's eye view of what's going on, right? Because I think we have a responsibility that we should take to inform ourselves as much as possible about the political process and about the things that are actually being done on our behalf. I don't think that, while I do not believe that voting per se is the only way out of our problems, absolutely not, because I'm more of a proponent of us of group economics, right? Of us building our own institutional power. But in the meantime, I don't really say that we should just step out of the process, because when you do that, you're pulling your voice out of it. And I know some people say, well, I'm not voting. These Democrats, they're doing this to me. I'm not voting. Well, you're not really a part of the equation. You make no difference if you don't get involved in the process. The reason why I am supporting Donald Trump, just to be clear, for all those who still have their little, oh, this guy's or whatever, I don't care about that shit. Maybe that I wasn't born with that I don't know, that thing inside of me where I care about what people think about me. I'm voting for Donald Trump because I care about my children. I'm voting for Donald Trump because I care about the economy. I care about us not being invested in foreign wars where our tax dollars are being funneled through the military in order to fill the pockets of those corrupt people on the left and the right, those maniacs that are running this country right now. I'm voting for Donald Trump because he's literally been president already. And many of you, whether you like it or not, you are actually doing better economically under him. And
Okay.
and probably the last reason why I'm voting for Donald Trump is honestly because when I see all of the celebrities out there, the wealthiest people in the country, when I see the biggest companies, the biggest corporations like Google and Microsoft, who control 99% of the search engines on the internet, supporting Kamala Harris, who's promising to censor you. When I see the World Economic Forum and companies like BlackRock, who are openly stating that Donald Trump is standing in the way of their globalist agenda, while the U.S. Summit for the Future is on the table, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are trying to sign us onto that while circumventing Congress, I understand that this is bigger than my feelings. So I implore you all, when you decide, even if you don't plan on voting, and I know, brother Boyce, you don't like to tell people what to do. Well, I'm asking you to go there and vote for Donald Trump. Hold your nose and write it in. If you don't like the man, I know he can be brash. He talks too much shit. He makes too much time for smoke and pettiness. I hate that shit. But I also understand that this is a man who has been heavily propagandized for the last 9 years straight, ever since he walked down that escalator and surprised the shit out of those Republicans and said, no, I'm running and I'm going to drain the swamp. So
Okay.
because of that, I'm just saying that that's why I'm voting for Trump, and I'm voting for our rights. And I'm also voting, and I love black women enough to vote against you this election, because like Donald Trump said, I'm going to be protecting you whether you like it or not.
Okay, so let me throw in a perspective to defend my point of view on why I'm not voting for either major party. First off, you're right. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I only tell people to vote whatever you feel comfortable with, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I will say too is, I would respectfully disagree about the idea that abstaining, it makes your voice irrelevant to a conversation. There's actually political science theory behind behind abstinence or abstaining as a way of actually making your voice heard even louder, because what you're doing is saying I could participate, but I'm not gonna legitimize an illegitimate system. Actually, I looked some of this up. There's a theory. It's called rational choice theory. It
Mhm.
says that voters weigh the costs and benefits when deciding whether to participate in elections. If a voter feels no candidate aligns with their values, abstaining can be a rational choice, communicating dissatisfaction more effectively than reluctantly voting for something you don't want, because you send the wrong signal saying I'm okay with this when really you're not. And there's also
Yes,
something
I get
called
that.
there's also
I get
something
that.
called delegitimization theory, which says
Mhm.
that when enough people abstain, it weakens the perceived legitimacy of your system. A lower turnout signals a significant portion of the electorate does not feel represented or invested in the outcome, pushing political
When
actors
enough
to
people
address
do it.
those unrepresented concerns to restore legitimacy. So there's more to say there. Now, I'm not telling people to do what I do. That's where I definitely stop. But I will say that I'm not here to be on Massa's plan. I'm here on God's plan. And when I feel the universe tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. I don't care what black folks say. I don't care what white folks say. And what I'm told to do is not support either party, because if enough American people eventually do this, then I think that will delegitimize the system. And I do believe that at some point, some candidate with enough money will come along and say, how can I reactivate all these voters that are sitting on the sideline? Because I don't think it's fair to ignore the fact that when I took that poll and I said, how many of you are happy with this two-party system, that 95% of the respondents said no. How do you
Absolutely.
ignore?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
right. How do you ignore 90-some% of the American people? I mean, maybe they think they can, because we do live in
Mhm.
this aristocracy disguised as a democracy. But again, when I hear people tell me, "Oh my God, Trump is going to destroy democracy," I'm like, what the hell democracy are you looking
This
at?
is a
Because what I see,
constitutional
well,
republic. It's not a
I'm not
democracy.
mad at, the democracy works for people like me, because what I don't see democracy. I see capitalism. I see capitalism's the big brother,
It's an
democracy is the little brother.
oligarchy.
The big brother punches the little brother in the face. So your whole damn government is owned by the people that have the money. And the only
Mhm.
reason somebody like me is able to survive in that space is because I got a whole PhD in money. I studied money
Mhm.
extensively, so I know where it's at. I know how to go get it, and that's what I talk
Mhm.
about every day: the money, the money, the money. Because I don't. I feel like it's almost wasteful to really talk about the democracy, because I don't see any, man. I just don't.
I
And
do
I
agree
know I
with you
said I'd let
though.
you get the
With
last word, so I'm gonna let you respond to that. And
no, no, no,
but
I
I
don't.
had to get that out. Go, please, go ahead.
No, I agree with you a lot, and with a lot of what you said, and even when as it pertains to those theories, I think it can be effective, absolutely, when you're talking about significant numbers abstaining, because it does send a signal like, "Uh-oh, we're not going to be able to manipulate these people," and it makes the process far more unpredictable. Yes, I do agree with that. I look at it more so, especially in this moment, as if you decide not to participate in this election, I think that the greatest value in your vote is in losing it to someone else. I hope that makes sense to people. It's because the greatest value in your, let's say you're a Democrat, right? The greatest value in your vote is in losing that vote to another party, not just you stepping out and abstaining, because you are no longer counted in that process. That's what I'm saying. We go the voting is based upon the number of people who come out and are actually a part of the count. So if you remove yourself from the count, you don't help, you don't hurt, you just walked away. So I'm saying the value in your vote, especially when I talk to black folks, because come on, bro, y'all give y'all votes to them Democrats unconditionally every election for the last 60 years. The value in it is in you taking it away and giving it to someone else who can hurt them. And I'm gonna tell you why you need to do that, because they don't take you seriously. I mean, that's just the facts. They do not take you seriously. So that's all I'm saying. I just want us to just raise our political IQ a little bit, get comfortable with talking to people that you're not usually comfortable talking to, and learn to agree with someone that you normally don't agree with, because that's the way that we actually create real communication with each other, by having those uncomfortable conversations without judgment, without feelings. We don't have time for that, because we're in a real state of emergency here, and as usual, we're the ones that usually end up on the front. of the firing line. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, we do. But we take
And
hits
I
for
appreciate
everybody,
all
don't
of the
we?
comments, whether I was talking shit or not. I appreciate it. You know, this is what I do.
No, no, you had some supporters and you had some detractors, but that's okay. Everybody, let's close. Let's have a consciousness moment and close this conversation in the right way. Give me a yes if we can walk away from this discussion where we agree
Friends.
and still love each other, still love our community. Give me a yes
Yes.
if you agree that whether you disagree with Tony or not, I consider him my brother. So give me a yes if we can walk away as adults and really have respect for each other and not let these politics divide us. If you can agree to that, then we can be cool, because I don't want us hating each other over this nonsense. I don't think it's beneficial to us. So what I want to do quickly is I hope everyone will go follow Tony. Whether you agree or disagree, he provides interesting commentary. He deserves to have a platform. His not Instagram, I'm sorry, his X account is Tony L Talks. It's right there. And your podcast is called We Need to Talk, and it's on Rumble.
We Need to Talk with Tony Lindsay, and you can
With
find me
Tony
on
Lindsay.
Rumble or YouTube.
Okay, and you got a book or anything by chance?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Oh wow, yeah.
You gotta
never market myself.
Yeah,
I never market myself, brother.
Give us a chance to support you, man, for real.
Yeah, but the name of the book is called From Passive to Powerful: A Guide to Mastering Self-Confidence. It's actually a really good book. It has very high reviews, and I actually stopped what I was doing to write this book during this political environment. From Passive to Powerful: A Guide to Mastering Self-Confidence. Please pick up the book if you can. I appreciate you, brother, for reminding me to,
man, heck yeah. I think at the end of the day, we got to support each other, man. So everybody go check out the book. Follow Tony on X.
And the movie. Sorry, they remind me of the movie. Yeah, the name of my movie is Where Hearts Lie. I'm a filmmaker as well. The name of the movie.
That's right. And I heard good things about your movie too. Yeah, somebody says in the chat your movie's. Yeah, so go check out this brother's movie. Come on now. Yeah, even if you don't, just go follow him just so you can tell him why he's crazy. Do that. Let's have a conversation, right? I'm with that. And by the way, everybody, my name is Boyce Watkins. In case it's your first day, and I want y'all to know that I'm all about the economics 100%. Every single morning in the Black Business School, we do free economic elevation training where all we do is we talk about money. Feel free to join us. It's a private Zoom. You can get an invitation. Just text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948, and I will send you an invitation. And so we're going to actually meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We do this 7 days a week, including holidays, because we're serious about elevating our people, elevating our condition. I believe we are going to be the ones who are going to be our own superheroes. So God bless you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. This podcast is also on Spotify. If you look up Boyce Watkins on Spotify, you will find this conversation also on Spotify in case you want to listen in your truck or something like that. So God bless you, everybody. Have a good night. And thanks again, Tony, brother. It was great to see you, man. All right. So that we got to do this and talk tomorrow during the election stuff, man. I can't wait to hear your perspective tomorrow as well. So I'm gonna hit you up on Twitter, okay?
I appreciate you, brother.
All right, Black man. God bless you. Have a good night, everybody. See you soon.
All right. Good night, everyone. I'll see y'all on TikTok.